This is the Go Radio Business Show.
So,
Willie.
I was going to say it was Tariff Tuesday or Tariff Thursday.
He's the man with the Midas touch.
Do you want to buy a pet rat?
Willie, sorry to interrupt you, but viewers and listeners, you heard it here first. We do not give investment advice, though, I must tell you. But gold is up 20% since the beginning of the year, and it's the best surge in gold prices since 1986. I'm calling it the Haughey effect.
Yep. Well, I don't like taking credit, but I'd like to say that telling everybody to buy gold started off as my idea.
But I must say, when the genie's out the bottle, I don't know when it's hit its all-time high.
Yeah.
Would you buy any more, Willie?
Oh, I think definitely, because the uncertainty at the moment across the globe, I think it is definitely a safe haven.
But remember, we don't give investment advice. Your house may go on fire if you leave the chip pan on.
Yes. Yeah.
Right, okay, back to the main topic, Willie.
Go to the tariffs.
Tariff.
We need to start with tariffs. So obviously it's been announced that the president has decided that he's just basically, it's a blanket tariff across everybody that is selling into the States.
Wow.
So I think, see if we go back and we kind of let the viewers and listeners know a wee bit about what he's getting at here, right? So if you go back, remember, the United States was a busted flush in the late 20s, early 30s. And it's fair to say that clever politicians, right, after the war, helped put America on its feet and probably laid the foundation for it to be the financial powerhouse that it is.
Yep.
Right? The biggest economy in the world, right? And I think that, so what the president is on about is, back in the day when we used to manufacture everything ourselves, for ourselves,
Yep.
then we were a very prosperous nation. And he didn't like the fact that loads of people now are selling into the States, and he says that everybody's been taking the mickey out of America, which I don't think is true. But I think, on a serious note, that anyone who's manufacturing at all now across the globe have to have a serious think about what they're going to do going forward. Because
Okay.
I honestly believe that the world order in manufacturing is going to be put on its head from today on
Okay.
with these tariffs.
And could it be good news for Scotland? Is there an opportunity, Willie?
I think, unfortunately, at the moment, if you're making whiskey, or you're making shortbread, or you're making soup, I think that you'd have to be really, really concerned.
But surely that Scottish whisky, I think there's only one whisky in the world, and it can only be made in Scotland. It's not as if Donald Trump can say, oh, well, we're going to make Scotch in America. You
Mhm.
can't. You can't call it Scottish whisky. There's only one place in the world you can make it.
Yeah.
And it is our biggest export from here, £1 billion, etc. But is he just going to blanket this, Willie?
What he's going to do is he's going to convince you that Jack Daniels is as good as Johnny Walker.
Well, the customer decides
Right,
that.
yeah.
You know,
But that's what he's trying to do, and he's trying to price you out the market.
Right.
For me, it's not a good plan, and it's interesting that he makes all these statements yesterday, and then says, "But my phone's on. So if anybody wants to phone me before it kicks in, then we can talk about it." So if it's a tactic to get things sorted, whatever, but you know, somebody said to me the other day there, what is bordering on stupidity? Mexico and Canada. Right. So at the moment, do you think it's a good idea, right? With some of the stuff that's coming out of America, I think for me, this is going to end up in a dog's dinner, right? They'll be what they said today, the Americans have said, and I think it's the New York Times that said that there will be states that will win out of this, but they're saying that the poorer states will get poorer.
Right. So let's just sum up, because it's a difficult subject and it's complicated, but I always try and bring things back so I can understand it, first of all. So I believe tariffs are bad for the global trade and the global economy. They put prices up.
Yep.
They slow economic growth. They
Yep.
cut the profits of the companies that are involved. They push up unemployment. They increase global tensions. My goodness. So, why is Donald Trump doing this then? So, he says America's got a 1.2 trillion. I think somebody wrote in last week and told me what a trillion was. It's a lot, and especially when it's measured
It's
in
a lot of
dollars.
zeros.
Especially when it's measured in dollars. So he's saying we've got a deficit of 1.2 trillion, enough's enough. But any junior economist will tell you that what's happened in the past 40 years in the globalization, which has led to most countries growing economically, is that if you own a country and you're good at something, then you specialize in it. It's called a global comparative advantage in economic terms. And therefore, you can do it better and you do it cheaper. And therefore, you export your goods. But America then specializes in other things.
Yeah.
So he's now saying, finished with that.
Yeah.
Everything's going to be made in America and we're going to make it better here, which is not the case.
What he's saying is he's going back to the days in the 50s and 60s when things were booming in the States, they produced everything they needed in the States. So like they'd be biggest makers of televisions, they'd be biggest makers of radios, biggest makers of sewing machines, Singer sewing machines. So they were a huge engineering giant, people like GE, other companies that would make loads of stuff. They just decided back then that when the pressure came on PLCs to make more and more money, they looked to outsource. And what they did was that big companies in America, I mean, you have to remember, they created this.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
They created this. It wasn't that somebody was trying to sell them stuff and all these sales guys were at the doors. Big conglomerates in the States were looking for how they could do things cheaper. And that is why Walmart decided, and Walmart would
Yep.
probably be, but
They would have led clearly.
Walmart is probably part responsible for the great surge in financial uplift in China.
Yeah.
Right, for their buying power. So I think that they created that themselves. No one came and stole all their ideas, right, about how to make things better and cheaper. And I agree with you. Tariffs are not a good thing, but the president would tell you it's the best word in the dictionary, right? That's what he said last week's press conference. So I wonder where he's getting that from. But it sounds like certain people have got his ear. And
Yep.
if they tell him something, he believes it and he acts on it.
And he
right?
acts on it, yeah.
And if it comes unstuck, then trust me, somebody else will be getting through under a bus. So I would just say that in the next 2 weeks, as the dust settles, that people all around the globe now will be having to have a major rethink about if you want to think in that insular way. So we start now putting the Union Jack on everything and it's buy British or do whatever it is we need to do. But I think that there's definitely going to be a rebalancing of the manufacturing sector across the globe.
So I would say the only chance Keir Starmer's got, and he's on this, is that the UK and the US are in kind of balance. There's not a huge deficit to America. So Donald Trump can't really complain too much about Britain. And it is inequitable because, there's 300 million people in America and 67 in the UK. And but we're in a trade balance there. So he can't attack us. He's attacking China, obviously.
Yeah.
Big trade imbalance. He imports more from there than he exports. So he has got a wee bit of an argument. I don't agree with it, but he would see that as right. And there is something which Keir Starmer is pushing, which is called the digital services tax.
Yes.
And Donald Trump saying, well, hang on, you're going to affect Amazon and Apple and Meta, Alphabet, So they do have some negotiation,
Yeah.
but, negotiating with Donald Trump, wow, it's a bit like negotiating with you, Willie. You don't have a chance.
Well, I think maybe negotiating with me, I might be more aware of the facts than having a
Oh,
conversation with
there
Donald
you
Trump.
go. There you
Right.
go.
But only because of my researchers, I have to say, right? Not because I'm that clever. But what I
Have you
would
got
say,
a researcher?
no,
I want one.
right? See, I don't even need Google. I've got Susan. She knows all the
She
answers.
knows everything.
She knows everything.
Oh,
Right.
that could be expensive. That could be expensive.
But let me tell you my biggest worry in all
Right,
of this.
come on then.
Right. See if Trump goes down this road, right? Sorry, the president of the US, Donald Trump. The big worry for me is that he is now putting people under pressure, like some of the companies you've just mentioned,
Yep.
to invest in the States.
Yes.
So Amazon are going to spend 500 billion, Meta's going to spend everybody, let's get back, let's
Yep.
get Insular, right?
Yep.
My biggest worry is that he starts to put pressure in some of the biggest American institutions that invest in Europe.
Right.
So if he puts a stranglehold on BlackRock and Blackstone and all the big PE companies and all of that, like they've done in the last couple of weeks by buying the ports in Panama,
Yep.
right? To be fair, I had to use a Swiss billionaire, right, to help buy them. It wasn't them themselves, right?
Indeed.
But that is my worry. If that tap is turned off, even as a threat in the short term, I don't know what it would do to the markets in Europe, but certainly don't know what it would do for growth in Europe.
So I think it's a problem. Now, another person who's got a problem here is our friend Elon. Elon's sales of Tesla in Europe are kind of in the toilet. Well,
Thank this word.
they're in the toilet, and there's a Chinese company,
Yeah.
BYD.
Yeah.
And I was asking Big Eddie Hawthorne, who's now retired
Yeah.
at Arnold Clark,
Yeah.
31st of March, but he is non-exec.
Yeah.
And he was explaining to me, BYD, Chinese company, electric cars only, is build your dream.
Correct. I found that out this week
Build
myself.
your dream.
Yes.
And Eddie is representing them here, and he says they're amazing. And they've actually come up with a battery that takes 5 minutes, to charge.
For a full charge.
So they are kicking Tesla's butt. So I think Elon's eye has been off because he's been doing other things. He's got a huge capacity, and my wife, you talked about Susan, Marion has actually bought a bumper sticker for her Tesla, which says, "I bought this before Elon went mental." But she doesn't want somebody damaging it.
But on that, they have got a car on the market at $10,000.
This is BYD.
Yes, they've got a better car above at $16,000. Tesla can't get anywhere near this.
No.
Right, can't get anywhere near it. So apart from, Tesla going mad and people boycotting, he was losing that war anyway on price and on quality. So I said it to you, I said it way back, right, that there's no way that he can take on this job and do SpaceX and do Tesla. And we talked about it last week. Some of his major investors are talking for him now to step down.
I mean, I still think he's a genius, but like every genius, they're flawed.
I've got to say, I have said the same, but more and more when I see him in action now, Tom, he is more flawed than genius. I have to say.
We will agree to disagree on that until he does the next mad thing. But anyway, so
let's talk about something we've mentioned quite a bit in the show over the last couple of years, the Wood Group.
wow.
First time ever we've spoken about the Wood Group in a negative vein.
So I can't understand it. Willie, they've had so many things going wrong, and they've come out this week, and for any company, never mind a public company, they've said they're going to have to restate the last 3 years' accounts.
Unbelievable.
Ugh,
Yeah.
that is bad news.
I wonder, Tom, if this, I take it when you read that, there's obviously going to be something going up about the sale of the company.
So they have there's a company based in Dubai called Sadara, who've been trying to buy them for some time. Well, the bad news is, or the good news for them, it's got a hell of a lot cheaper. But when we're looking to buy companies and we find problems in their accounts, we think, what else? Is this, are we pulling this string and then it begins to unravel? But it could be an opportunity for Sidara to buy them. It might not be. They've got problems. They've got a debt refinancing coming up in October, $1.4 billion. Imagine trying to go to your bank and say, can you renew my 1.4 billion line? Don't worry about the last 3 years' accounts that you based the last debt package on. It was Hans Christian Andersen.
Yeah.
Wow. This is serious stuff, Willie.
Well, what you know, I don't need to tell you, you know that most times people just close the book, get up and walk away from a negotiation when they find something as serious as this.
Yeah.
But as you say, they might find that the infrastructure within the group, if we can steal it now, only one or two things are going to happen. They're going to walk away, they're going to steal it.
Yep.
Right, simple as that. And I think that no matter what, it's certainly no good news for the Wood Group.
Which is a shame
Yeah.
because a brilliant company.
Yeah.
It started as a fishing boat company.
Right.
Ian Wood
Sir Ian's father. Yeah.
grew a global oil and gas business from nothing, based in Aberdeen. Just one of the best business stories that's ever come out of Scotland. Ian must be pulling his hair out.
Oh, terrible, terrible. So I read an interesting story this week that the European Investment Event will make its return to Scotland for the first time in several years.
Right.
And the tech tour comes to Edinburgh on the 14th, 16th of May, and it will focus on deep tech and hardware and software, aiming at companies looking for Series A or larger investments.
So this is a group of investors coming and somebody showcasing what Scotland can do.
It's a roadshow to
Right.
show you what Scotland's got to offer.
Okay.
Entrepreneurs and investors from all over Europe will gather, right,
So
in the capital for
it-
2 days.
Got to be good news, but you've got a point of view.
Yes. I think following on that theme, that we should think bigger and we should play to our strengths. And I think that we should have a major Invest in Scotland conference at Gleneagles. Like Scottish Enterprise and other bodies should take over Gleneagles, and we should try and invite everybody from all over Europe and afar that come to Scotland, and we'll have this whole conference about showing you why you should invest in Scotland. And we're not MIPIM, right? So we're not the south of France.
Which is a big
right?
property
But
investment.
if the G8 think that Gleneagles is a top priority venue to come for something like this, I would love us to think outside the box to see if we, especially all the conversations we've been having the last few weeks about inward investment for clean energy.
Yeah.
I think if we had a clean energy conference at Gleneagles, made it nice for the people to come, we game of golf, some entertainment, get our pals, Nicola, other people, big Scottish, world-renowned.
That's not Nicola Sturgeon, no.
No.
Well, she was on the fiddle. No, she wasn't a violinist.
Very good, Tom. That's not bad
not
for you.
fair.
Ah,
That's
you're
not
in good,
fair.
You're in good form today.
That's not fair.
No, totally vindicated.
There are plenty of other politicians.
Right, okay. But Nicola Benedetti and other world-renowned Scottish artists, and I think that we could start to build it off so as it became a annual event. Let's get something to match the Edinburgh Festival.
So, Willie, your thinking as usual is brilliant. I had a meeting last week in London, and you and I have been to Tony Blair's Future of Britain conference,
Yeah.
and it's great. He's got great speakers. He sets out an agenda, and we thought we would come up with the Future of Scotland event. So over to you, Willie.
Right.
I don't need to pay for it now. Thank you so much.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
But you're dead on. Where is the future of Scotland? I am fed up. We are dropping down just about every league there is, the economic league, the education league.
Healthcare League.
Scotland was leading the world in these things.
Yeah.
So where are the big ideas? So a Future of Scotland conference, you and me, let's get on with it.
Right, I totally agree.
Brilliant.
Let's start, when our friend Professor Sir Jim McDonald gets in place at Scottish Enterprise, we'll have him round for a cup of tea, we'll get him on the show,
If he's paying for it.
and we'll put his arm up his back and he's
Great.
paying for it. We'll get him and Willie Watford snib to say this is a good idea. But I think you would get companies that would help sponsor that. Let's get our friend Stuart Patrick, who's going to be coming on shortly, all his members. What do you think about this?
Stuart's always generous with his checkbook.
Right.
That's one thing I can say about Positive Patrick.
Right, you've used the word positive, and we always try to be positive, right? But I think we need to be honest, right?
Aye.
And Tom, I have never heard so many people complaining about what it's like to be here at the moment.
Yeah.
Right? Companies, people, individuals, why would you want to be here? Why would you want to do this? Everybody's looking at moving abroad, everybody, and this is a fact, businesses. So for me, because of the lure of some of the other places, people want to go to the States, people want to go, you know, to Canada, people are looking now to say, wait a minute, this place is heading towards being a basket case, right? And we need to do something to turn that around, because me and you know better than me, entrepreneurs are now, startups are now saying, wait a minute, would my efforts be better appreciated elsewhere?
So I told you we had an event, fireside chat at Blair, part of Scale Up Scotland, a couple of weeks ago, and John Scott, the wooden pallets man,
Right.
brilliant story. Well, he started from nothing, sold his pallet and timber business for over 300 million.
Amazing.
But he was in Monaco for a while. He's moved to Dubai for his children's education. And during that conversation over dinner with the rest of the entrepreneurs, everybody started to ask him, "Oh, John, what's Monaco like? Oh, John, what's Dubai like?" And I went, "Hang on a minute. This is not about getting the entrepreneurial community to move away from Scotland. This is about to get you here. So we need to make Scotland great again, because if we don't, we know capital and intellect are portable.
Yes.
We know that, Willie.
Yeah.
And I have never been more worried about where this capital and where this intellect is going. And it really is, you know, it really is worrying me.
Some of the people I've spoken to in the last 3 weeks, I now share your concerns, because that's what I'm hearing as well. So we need to let the politicians know through this media. We need to let the politicians know. We need to let Jim McDonald know. We need to let Wally Watt know. What do we do? Maybe we need to have a conference in Glen Eagles to talk people into staying.
Yes.
Right? No, something. Well, to be fair, you try and do that with your conference.
I do.
Right. So anyway, we don't want to end in a negative. What
On
we're
you
saying
go.
is that we know a problem, but it's not too late to address it.
It's not too late, but we need big ideas for Scotland.
I totally
We
agree.
do. So, Willie, I read this week, and I think it was an April Fool's thing, where Aldi come up with a water called Taps Off because of this brilliant weather. And you know, I live in the Ayrshire Riviera, as you know, and not the French Riviera, but the Ayrshire Riviera. And Aldi come out with this as a spoof, but they've had so much positivity, they might actually produce a water called Taps Off. So
Only in Scotland.
only in Scotland. Stay in Scotland. Don't leave.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Sam, we've got our old pal back, Stuart Patrick, Chief Executive of the Chamber of Commerce. Great to have you back, Stuart.
Thanks very much.
Or as he would call you,
Positive Patrick.
You've got me thinking now. I'm not sure where my checkbook is. Last time I saw it, probably before Christmas.
I didn't mean on a night out, Stuart, because the moths fly out your wallet on a night out.
Oh, that's it. You don't even know.
But-
That's terrible.
But you know, you're generous with your comments and you're always positive. So what positivity are you bringing to the Go Radio Business Show today?
Well, it's been a sunny week. It looks like it's going to be a sunny week next week as well. So we are in pretty cheerful spirits at the Chamber this month. But let's be honest, it's not been easy
No.
to be cheerful. You started with tariffs, and I think it's important for us to say that, well, you won't be surprised to hear that the Chamber is a vigorous supporter of free trade.
Yes.
And we've been opposing trade tariffs throughout our what's now 242-year history.
242 years.
And if you think about that, that means we were only established just, 7 years after Adam Smith wrote The Wealth of Nations.
Wow.
And that's where he made that powerful economic case against trade barriers.
Yes.
It feels rather strange to be having to go back to that tome.
I did my economic thesis at Strathclyde University on the wealth of nations.
And you'll not be
I
surprised.
wish I could remember it.
Well, you'll not be surprised then that ever since we have been opposing taxes, tariffs, monopolies, and any form of legislation that makes it more difficult to trade.
Correct.
So the only way that we are going to win this battle is, I think, to get that case for free trade back onto the table. And it matters because the UK is more engaged in international trade than the average world country's economy. So if you actually think about the UK, it's got a much higher ratio of international trade to the size of our economy than the United States or China. In fact, 2 or 3 times higher. So it matters much more to us that trade in whisky and engineering and life sciences, creative industries, or indeed in professional services is unimpeded. So we're going to make the case for improved trading links and reducing trading barriers in the way that we always have done.
So Stuart, on that, sorry to butt in, but can I ask you, one of the complaints from the president is that you've all been taking the mickey, right? So other countries have been ripping it with the States in relation to imports here. Is there any, I don't want to put this spot, is there any evidence that the UK has been doing that?
Well, no, I mean,
So you're calling the president out here, Stuart.
well, I have to say the UK
One
is.
president to another.
Yeah, I go back to the case, even when you look at the Chinese,
Yeah.
and you'd say, well, look, surely the case was that the Chinese were going to get nearly 1 billion people out of poverty, that were going to be able to spend money, not just on American traded goods, but on American services as well. They were going to become tourists for a start. We were going to build a huge new middle class. We were all going to benefit from their spending power. Now, actually, probably one of the biggest issues that hasn't yet come to fruition is the ability of the Chinese yet to spend, because they don't feel secure enough as family households to get their checkbooks out and spend as much as they should. That's the big challenge that President Xi's got in order to get the Chinese economy going. But in the long run, it was always going to be beneficial to America to have it, well-off, heavy spending Chinese. We seem to be forgetting that. That seems to have gone in this whole debate about tariffs.
So, to answer my question, will we take the mickey?
No.
No, definitely not.
No,
Right, so we're making that quite clear.
Tom is right about the
Right.
balance of trade between the UK and the US.
Yeah, and I think the mistake, not going away, so cutting into your time, but the mistake the Chinese made is that with the money that they earned from their exports, that they thought that they were taking a 1 billion people out of poverty and we're going to build all these new houses, we've got this right. But what they didn't realise is that although the country were getting all these taxes, the people were not getting the money to live the lifestyle of where they were trying to take them. They were trying to take them from down here into middle class, working class. It just didn't happen. They built whole new towns with thousands and thousands of houses where nobody there with what they make can afford to live in them.
But just to defend China for a second, it did move the most people out of poverty of any nation ever in the world.
Yeah.
So,
Sorry, Stuart.
Yeah, well, I think one of the things I was going to highlight here today is that we're going to carry on with our work in improving trading links all across the world. So right now we've got a business delegation in New York, part of the Tartan Week celebration.
okay.
First time that we've taken a business delegation across
right.
for Tartan Week. And in June, we're going to lead another delegation to represent Glasgow as the guest city at the China International Technology Week in Shanghai.
Very good.
We signed an agreement with the Economic Development Agency Bremen Invest to promote trade between ourselves and Germany in renewable energy. And we're also going to lead, as we've discussed before, another delegation to Singapore in the autumn. So successful international trades, it's always been a Chamber objective, and it's why Chamber members are 4 times more likely to be exporting than non-members.
That's a great marketing line, Stuart. Is it true?
It is.
Okay. Even better.
It's April, though.
Not April the 1st, though.
No, but it is April, and this is the month, of course, that the increases in employers' national insurance contributions now hit businesses across every sector. British Chambers of Commerce research work shows that over 80% of businesses are affected, and they've given us widespread feedback on price increases, reduced investment, and falling recruitment. Hospitality businesses have had an especially miserable time since the pandemic. And so, as part of Glasgow's 850th anniversary celebrations, and in partnership with the City Council, we have just launched Taste the Place. We are showcasing a trail around 44 hospitality venues offering 23 different international cuisines. The venues are in the city centre, the south side, the east end and the west end, and they include restaurants, cafes, bars and more. And we wanted to show the sheer variety of Glasgow's hospitality offer and at the same time tell a strong story about the impact of immigration into Glasgow's history
It's a great
over the
idea.
years.
Great initiative.
You've got the rest of the year to pick off all 44 venues, and you can find out more at tastetheplace.co.uk. So please get out there, get eating, get drinking.
And how long does that run?
Good at this,
So how
right?
long does that run
Look at
for?
this.
That'll run right through to the end of this year.
Right.
So you have the full
Right.
next.
Taste the Place.
9
You heard it here
Yep,
first.
9 months to do it. Keeping to this international theme, let me just keep to that. We've also just completed our first circular economy leadership programme with senior execs of chamber members. And we included in that a learning trip to Amsterdam and to Rotterdam. We've been promoting the benefits of the circular economy, reduced resource demand globally, but also you reduce your production costs as a consequence of investing in this. And we've been doing this for about 9 years. But with the support of Scottish Enterprise, we wanted to help Glasgow companies see how circular principles can be applied in real business life. And they do that really well in the Netherlands. So we've had them out there for a portion of the week. We also want to make it easy for people to get to all these international destinations. So we need good air connections. And so it was very encouraging to meet with the new owners of Glasgow Airport in the last fortnight. German airport investors and managers Avi Alliance, which in turn is a wholly owned subsidiary of Canadian pension fund investment company PSP, have now completed their purchase of AGS airports. And we also heard this week that Blackstone have taken a 22% minority share in the business. So the message from the... Well, we're coming to that. We're coming to that because the message from the new owners was very positive. They've got real confidence in the unexploited potential of Glasgow Airport, and they're making a long-term commitment. They're going to be around for many years.
Okay.
If the track record of Avi Alliance is anything to go by, that's believable.
Okay.
We expect to hear more details of the investment plans that they're going to make in the weeks ahead. Not long off, we're going to hear. So, but we're getting some suggestions. There's quite a lot of money going to come Glasgow Airport's way.
Yep.
So we're looking forward to seeing that. We also discussed with the team the potential benefits of the airport having the Advanced Manufacturing Innovation District sitting right next door.
Yep.
The scope for growth in Glasgow's advanced manufacturing sector, given some of what Willie was saying earlier, we received a bit of a boost from the Chancellor's spring statement, with Rachel Reeves specifically mentioning Glasgow's advanced manufacturing industry as a beneficiary of the UK government's increased budget for defence and security. And since collectively, amongst business, academic and government life, we've chosen advanced manufacturing as the target industry for the £160 million investment zone from the UK government, we're beginning to get a sense of what government will be able to do through its industrial strategy to help Glasgow's manufacturing industry grow.
Wow.
Brilliant. Brilliant. So sure, we were mentioning earlier about the tech trade fair that's coming to Edinburgh, and we're talking about how we could do more. What would your thoughts be on that we try to create a mini MIPIM, taking Gleneagles as a venue and try to entice major investors from all around the world to come and try and build it up into a kind of annual event?
I think there's scope in that. I think the property market in Leeds, there's UK Reef, it's called now, and that's essentially a competitor to MIPIM, but it's just for property investment. If you're looking at investment in tech, then I think there's the field is wide open. And it's just one of the things that we've said about Scottish Events Campus, that we're quite often out there looking for other organisations to bring their product to the SEC. The All Energy event in May is probably the biggest example of a tech week event. But if you go to Germany, they have their own homemade events for the, Hanover, for Dusseldorf. They've got their own.
A little bit
suite
France are
on-
doing, a little bit France are doing,
Yep.
trying to, like, to take over an old railway station, turn it into a big, huge hub, give people free space, anything for tech. So I think that we're kind of lagging. If we could just up our game and go after that, and especially what we're talking about last week, and how buoyed we were by our guest last week, Lewis, we could be at the forefront of green tech. 100%, and we're not pretending about it. And I think if we had a conference just on that basis,
Yep.
I think that we could fill the place.
And if some of the areas of technology that we've been exploring in this part of the world, space communications, quantum computing, laser technologies, photonics, we don't have, purpose-built conferences for those. So something that captured the, talent of Scotland's business community and those technologies would also be worthwhile exploring.
Sounds good.
Sounds good. Stuart, another positive report from the chamber. Thank you very much.
You're welcome.
Thank you. Positive Patrick.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.
Tom, another wonderful guest we've got this week, and they've really dug one out here. I've got Craig Clark, and I've got to say, this is the spaceman.
This is the spaceman.
Right.
I've been reading these notes, Craig, and it's great when you meet someone we've never met before, have we?
I don't think so.
Don't think so. And
That sounds terrible, but I'll explain later. I lost my memory, so that's another story.
Well,
we'll save it for our time.
if I'd met you, I would remember. I think our listeners and our viewers are going to love your story today.
So over to you, Craig. Tell us a wee bit about the whole journey and what you've done.
Well,
A wee bit of background, and I always are fascinated, Craig. Was there anything in your background that pointed to where you were going or what you were going to do?
well, my story I kind of stumbled into it. So I'm from Cumbernauld, so I went to Greenfalls High, went straight from 5th year to uni. I was the first person in my family to go to uni.
Right.
So I'd done engineering, electronics.
So you were good at it.
Honestly, I was like so young that I just thought this looks like a good idea at the time.
Okay.
So I done electronics at Glasgow Uni and kind of stumbled my way through that, came out with
Was that a good course?
it's a great course, yeah, they do like fantastic work. I think we've got great universities in Glasgow. I'm very fortunate for that.
Yep.
I kind of came out with a kind of average degree, applied for lots of jobs, went for interviews, didn't have a clue what I was doing. I was 20 years old.
You were young.
I was pretty young. I offered one job, and it was with a satellite manufacturing company down in Surrey.
Right.
So I took it. It's so like, there wasn't the plan.
No great plan here.
There was no plan. It was just stumbling about. So I got this job, but it was a startup. There were about 20 people in this company. It was a spin out from the University of Surrey.
All right.
And I grew with that. So I would say that, if you join a startup when you just get out of uni, you learn so much. You're just chucked in the deep end. You've got to do everything.
And did that, because it's something, a question, and I've been through it with my own kids, you got to find out in life, are you better in a big company or do you enjoy a smaller company where it's, you're quicker for decision making, closer to decisions? Did you like the startup environment?
I think so. And it was interesting to see the company grow. So when I left, it was about 250 people.
Wow.
And they went through lots of growing pains. They made the mistake of like kind of promoting people that were kind of narcissistic and all that kind of stuff, and it's ups and downs, and you learn a lot from that, because as a young person, I mean, I left when I was 30, 31. So I was
You
still
did it a while then.
Yeah, I was about 11 years there.
Aye.
But the last year I was writing my business plan for Clyde Space. But
So did being in a smaller company give you the idea that you could do it?
No, the idea was my wife is from Largs. So
Right.
she was, we had
Here's your Riviera again.
So we had a kid and she was pregnant with her second, and we thought, well, let's move back to Glasgow to be with her family.
Right.
So I looked at Scotland at the time and I thought, what am I going to do? There's no space sector.
What's the kind of timeline of this?
So this was about 2004.
2004, right? Wow.
Yeah. So I didn't really know what I was going to do. So one of my friends said, why don't you start your own business? And I was like, no. I mean, that's not me. I honestly never thought about it. never, then I thought, well, what kind of person does start a business? Am I that kind of person? So I got a couple of books and read them, and I decided
What were the
that,
books, if I may ask?
well, there was,
The reluctant entrepreneur.
no, well, it was things like sales in a beer mat was quite a good one, I thought.
All right, aye.
And it was on the front, you only needed to read the front page. It said, be liked, qualify, close. And I think that's all that selling is, you know, as long as you're likable and as long as you've got the right product or service, it's dead easy to close. So I found that out fairly quickly.
Right.
And be liked, by the way, is not just about you as a person, it's a company.
A company.
So
right.
all your
More
branding is extremely important. So whether it's space industry or whatever sector, it doesn't really matter.
I think it's a great maxim to live by in a
Yep.
business sense, isn't it?
It is. And then I had a business plan book, which I can't remember the exact name of it, but that really helped. It was very methodical, so I went through that.
So you were a wee bit reluctant as well. I said it was kind of, oh, is this for me? I don't know.
It was a wee bit, but my wife and I had made a decision just to give it a go. But what they don't tell you,
Your wife told you basically,
she did, and she ended up running.
like all our wives.
Oh, but she was in the company ultimately because we tried. We've got a few stories of trying different FDs and all sorts of stuff, but Lynn ended up running finance and HR.
Wow.
So to the point that when we had investors and we had somebody in who was a finance,
So what's the name of your startup company?
Clyde Space.
Clyde Space, wow, right. So that went, well, okay, so take us on that journey then. So you've taken the plunge,
Yep.
you've moved back to Scotland,
Yeah, we sold our house in Surrey and used the money.
used the money. So you made a few quid in your house down there.
Yeah, so we rented for about 9 years.
Wow.
So because we put all our money in.
'Cause that gave you the cash flow.
Yeah.
Brilliant.
So I mean, you know, normal thing. It
Aye.
seemed normal at the time.
But what made you, so what was the company going to do and what made you choose that?
Well, first of all, I thought I'll just do what I was doing. So was designing power systems and solar panels and batteries and things like that for satellites. I thought I'll do that
Right.
for other people who need it. But very quickly found out about this thing called CubeSats. It's a standard approach to making satellites. So you would have all standard subsystems, standard structures, and a standard launch adapter, which had never been done before.
Right.
And they're very small. So they took advantage of like the most latest evolutions in electronics, whereas the traditional space industry was kind of really old fashioned. It took them ages to do anything.
It sounds funny,
very
doesn't it?
different.
Space, you think it's cutting edge.
Yeah.
But you're
No, they
saying
don't
it was a
like
bit
change.
kind of,
No, they don't like change. Or they historically didn't like change. So it's kind of stuck in the past, I would say.
and can I ask you, 2004, was there much help for starting your
Yeah.
business?
So
So who helped you?
well, targeting innovation existed then, so they helped.
Right.
I had a grant that I paid my salary for the first year.
Right.
So I actually wasn't the first employee of Clyde Space.
Right.
I had a grant,
Okay.
which was really
that was helpful.
Yeah. And there was just, I think Scottish Enterprise were open to the idea of this space company. But the CubeSat thing was the really important part because that allowed us to design products that we then sell. So our first products were sold like South Africa, Malaysia, Thailand, Japan, the US. It took us ages to sell anything in Europe and then even longer to sell anything in the UK. So, you know, people talk about like exporting and
Well,
being a big problem. Well, it
We've
was the
been talking
exact
about
opposite.
it today.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was the opposite problem.
So would it be fair to say that you started, because Glasgow's now seen as a centre for this,
Yeah.
a real cluster, a real world leader? Is that, am I putting words in your mouth?
I would say so.
Great. So did you start it?
Yeah.
You seem very modest.
He is very modest. He did start it. He did start it.
Well, I think, so we've done the first satellite and that was, I mean, there's loads of stories with that. Lots of squeaky bum moments, I have to say. I've nearly gone under so many times and sacking chairman, all sorts of stuff. It was horrendous.
It's always good when you sack the chair.
Yeah, I mean, I think you've got to, when you run a business, Stuart, it's like, you know, you need to do what's right for the business,
Yeah.
and it's never easy when you're sacking someone. It's not something you enjoy, but you need to do.
Craig, tell Tom, when you started, you were the first guy to start anything to do with space.
Yeah,
How many companies in Scotland today now are working in that sector.
There's about 200 and about 6,500 people,
Unbelievable.
and we make more satellites in Glasgow than anywhere else in Europe.
It
Unbelievable.
just shows, Willie, because Willie and I are all about promoting Scotland as the place to be. So when someone like you comes up with this, we should be right behind it, you know, we as a country, because look what happens.
Unbelievable.
Just
Just
one
a great
person.
example. A great example.
Just one person.
Yeah.
It's fantastic.
And one of the things that I'm most proud of is a lot of these companies are started by people that worked for me.
Are they really?
Yeah.
Right.
They never worked in the space sector before. We brought them in and we had to train them up, and they ended up going off and doing their own space company.
Right. So the listeners and the viewers are always interested in looking for nuggets here. So you're going in, you're a pioneer. I'm going to call you a pioneer.
Yeah.
And you're growing your business, and there's lots of challenges, but how did you overcome that? How did you stay relevant with your knowledge? How did you lead that company? Is there any wee stories or nuggets in there?
I think, well, leadership is really important, but team is extremely important to me.
Team.
So building a team, and so I had some great people working. So it wasn't that, obviously I started the company, but without the people, it
Yeah.
would never have worked. So
Right.
I had some great people around me.
Did you have a problem attracting them to Glasgow? Or
A lot of them came from university. So the CTO, still there, Andrew Strain, he was my second. He was if I've asked him to walk through a pane of glass, he would have. And you know, without people like that in your business, you know,
so he was from Glasgow?
yeah, he's from Glasgow,
Wow.
straight out of uni.
And where did you first base?
We were based in the Science Park in Victor, Scotland.
Yeah.
So Mary Hill.
Right. And how big did the company grow before you actually exited?
We were about 100 people, and we sold for, I think it was in Swedish. We were bought by a smaller company that was listed in the Swedish NASDAQ,
Oh, Sweden, right?
and we sold for about, I think it was 26 million.
Right. And who were your customers?
We had everyone like NASA, ESA,
NASA.
UK Space Agency, lots of different defence organisations in the US, lots of universities,
So
companies.
why were they buying from a Glasgow company?
Because we had the best product.
Yeah.
And we also, we were the first in the world to have an online shop. So you could buy satellites basically with a credit card online, which we did get orders. They come in the morning, oh, there's an order from Japan.
Wow.
So Craig, tell us, obviously you've came along, you've had an idea, right? But obviously you must have disrupted the market. Were you creating something at the moment at a far better price than what was in the marketplace?
I think it's about value. So
Yeah.
there were cheaper out there. but
Yeah.
Our product was really good.
Right.
And we made sure it worked.
Right.
It did. So our first satellite worked, and then subsequent satellites all worked. We also attracted companies to Scotland. So there's a company called Spire who we housed in our office initially. Now they've got about 200 staff making 70 satellites a year.
So if I had his credit card, how much would it have cost me back then, say 2006, to buy a satellite?
Well, it was probably a wee bit later. So let's say 2014 is what we want.
Okay.
2014.
Right, okay.
Probably about 200 grand. I'd say.
Right.
That seems all right.
Aye.
Huh?
And how many satellites do you think from the start to now that the company you started have been responsible for delivering? Thousands?
It wouldn't be thousands,
No.
but probably about 100 now, I
Yeah,
think, I
yeah,
guess.
right.
And what would it cost you today to buy the same satellite?
Well, the satellites are getting more complicated, so they're getting slightly bigger, and the payloads are more complex, and like Clyde Space now do like forestry management, take pictures of forest right in Scotland and also other countries, and they
Right.
manage like forest from space. So they do things like
From
that.
space.
Yeah.
So just tell me about that. So you send up a satellite.
Yeah.
And how far up does a satellite go?
Usually about 600 kilometers.
Right.
I mean, so it's 5/8 to a mile. Right, that's a lot.
Aye.
Right. I know you probably get nice cars, but the satellites travel at 7.5 kilometers per second.
Per second.
Yeah.
That's almost as fast as Willie's
Car.
electric car. He almost killed me getting into Parkhead
Aye.
when there.
So, what in this sector? So you're the perfect guy. Me and him have a debate every week about Elon. Okay.
Oh yeah.
Right. And you're the perfect guy to ask.
Genius or villain?
He's a kind of an awkward guy. So I seen him.
Most of us are.
I know, but
You don't seem awkward at all. You seem too nice to be an entrepreneur.
You started SpaceX around roughly about the same time I started Clyde Space. Obviously, he had a lot more money.
Right.
But he had a Falcon 1 to start with. Falcon 9's his main launch vehicle. That's the one that takes people up to space station. And they launched about 3 or 4 a week. It's ridiculous.
Right.
So, I mean, that's not going to change. They're just too good.
Too good.
They're far too good.
So he is very good at what he does there.
Well, the people that
Tell Willie, because
the
Willie.
people that do SpaceX are very good. I don't think Elon has much to do with it, to be honest.
Tackling.
But
Yeah, he will tell you that he claims the credit for when they couldn't get it to work. He went in and moved his bed in, and
well, to be fair to him, he did have the idea and they pushed.
yeah,
But I think that
It's about team.
you've got a
isn't it?
lot of
It's about
clever
team.
people
Yeah,
that do
yeah.
the actual work.
And what do you think now of him completely disrupting the market? Where is it, Starlink?
Yeah, I think there's a danger that he'll have a monopoly.
Yeah,
And that's
Monopolies
bad.
are bad.
Yeah. So we need to have alternatives. And that's going to be really important. But also there's the fact that he's launching thousands of these things. So he's got more satellites on orbit than anyone else.
Has
Yeah.
he? Right.
Yeah. And then there's a problem with orbital debris.
Yeah.
So because he's got production line of satellites.
Right. Just tell me about orbital debris. This is a new phrase for me.
Yeah. So it's a piece, say you've got a failed satellite, or even a satellite that's working. Imagine you're on a space station
Right.
and this thing's like hurtling towards you. The more things are up there that are hurtling about at 7.5 kilometers per
So
second,
it's like rubbish.
say it's coming opposite direction, so it's twice the speed. So it's not a lot of time to get out the road. So
and is that happening? Are we
there
having
has been
crashes?
some,
Yeah,
so that then you get like kind
explosion.
of almost disintegrates with lots of different particles, and then that can also have this cascading effect. So then it could cause some orbits to be, you can't use them because there's just too much stuff.
Right. So just take me back. So you've launched your satellite. It's up there at 600 kilometers.
Yeah.
And it's looking at forests.
They do lots of different things, but and this one in particular does forests. We also worked on a mission with NASA that done ocean colour, so you could see silt deposits, pollution in the oceans around coastlines, all that kind of stuff. So we replaced a satellite that was 10 times the size, but it was 100 times better at doing the job.
100 times better.
Yeah, because the technology was more current.
So how easy was it to sell to NASA?
Yeah, dead easy.
Did they
Come
buy
on now.
Did they buy one online?
Yeah,
They did.
it's dead. I mean, what's the company credit card?
Yeah.
You know, just like buy parts and bits and bobs.
And
So.
was that a feather in your cap when
We
NASA?
didn't have time.
No?
It's like when you're starting out, you're
You're so
you're
busy.
just looking at cash flow. There's always problems. You even got loads of cash in the bank and like millions of pounds in order book. There's always a problem to
There's
solve.
always a problem.
Okay, right, we've got to dwell on this, right? See, when you first read the email or whatever it was that a eureka moment, or do you think somebody's taking the mickey here? NASA wants a salary.
No,
Right.
no.
So were you jumping up and down, hallelujah?
No, I'm probably just thinking, great, we can pay salaries next month.
Wow, amazing, amazing.
Right. So you can photograph from 600 kilometers up and they see deforestation, they
Yeah.
see disease, they see.
You can see lots of things. So, and also you can use them for lots of different things. So one of the guys who used to work for me is a friend of mine. He's got a company called Trade in Space based in Glasgow. So you need to have this kind of rubber stamp to say that if you're importing something like coffee beans or rubber, you needs to come from a sustainable source. So it doesn't have any deforestation. So he uses satellite data to give it the rubber stamp.
Wow.
And that's so that government can say this is going to be allowed to be imported.
So Craig, there's not a great deal of time left, and this is only the start of your story. So you sold to the Swedes.
Yeah.
Why did you sell, and how did you feel?
Well, imagine you're the first space company in Scotland, and at the time there was like 3 space companies in the UK. Me, Airbus, or Astrum at the time,
Yeah.
and the company I used to work for. So when David Willett stood up and was in a thing in Parliament and said we were the backbone of the space sector, and I was like, this is just crazy. But I think, sorry, what was the question again?
So the question was, why did you sell?
Why did I sell? So why did I sell?
How did you
Right.
feel?
So get investment. Imagine saying, I've got a space company, we want to build satellites. I mean, it was very difficult to get investment. And we had an investment kind of private equity group called Nevis Capital, and we had
Nevis, right?
an individual called Hugh Stewart, who is a great guy, he's a
Right.
mentor to me. And they invested about, I think total about $500,000, so not a lot of money.
Right.
I see what people get today, and I think to just think what I could have done with all that money. But they wanted an exit after about 7 years.
Right.
Typical.
So
But
would you have sold if you could have replaced that capital?
well, probably it's difficult to say.
I know.
But I think that at the time probably we gave away too much equity
Yeah.
for the amount of money we got.
Yes.
But that was
That's
like
what happens.
basic
It's the
ignorance.
same for everybody.
It's
Yeah.
the same. And everybody listening and watching today, it's needs must, isn't it?
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
So you sell, do you stay with the company?
I did try to, but I think any entrepreneur,
Once you
get
sell your baby.
restricted. Decisions are being made that you have no control over,
Right.
and you just like.
So you got frustrated, and then what?
So I'm now doing work with Strathclyde. So I work in,
Clyde Uni?
yeah, I work with major projects. So like under Sir Jim, who's obviously he's stepping down, but we do things like we've just raised quite a lot of money from UK government to put in infrastructure. So like you said, we need to follow this great stuff that's happening.
Yep.
So we're going to put in a satellite manufacturing factory
Wow.
near Glasgow Airport, which will have the ability for SMEs to work with defence organisations, which they can't do at the moment, which is going to be important given the state of the world
Right.
at the moment. So moving quickly, and also we'll have launch from Scotland. So that's involved in this project too.
Right.
So we'll be able to basically build the satellites, build the payloads, launch them from Scotland and get the data down and give it to the customer, which is incredible.
And are you doing that as a commercial venture or?
This is not, so Strathclyde, we kind of do it as infrastructure. So we'll do it alongside government kind of initiatives.
So will this be a spin out from the university?
It kind of is sort of, we'll have CEOs running it, like a bit like the National Manufacturing Institute for Scotland.
It's amazing.
So it'll be part of that. It'll be part of NMIS.
Sort of like that,
Yeah.
yeah. So it'll be relationships will be slightly different, more commercial focused.
So
And just, we're kind of running out of time, but if you had your magic wand and you could get Scotland to just take a world position in this, what needs to be done?
It's infrastructure, so this is the first step.
And you're doing
So-
that through Strathclyde Uni now.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
What else?
we need more talent into the sector. So we need more of our young people going into the space sector. And it's not just, we need technicians as well as engineers, and we need all the back office.
Yep.
But we need more infrastructure. So this is a start, it's a stepping stone. But I'm talking to companies that are looking to build 250 satellites in Glasgow that are much bigger to do things like, better position navigation timing. But they need to have somewhere to land. So that I see other countries like Italy doing this, and they're putting more money in than we are and building more infrastructure. So if you're going to stay ahead, we need to have the infrastructure and the people in place to deliver
Well,
it.
I
So,
think once Sir Jim moves to Scottish Enterprise, you're going to have an ally.
yeah, he's done a great job with Strathclyde.
He has.
Yeah.
Right. So let me ask you this, Craig. Our number one thing that we've been focusing on the last few months, last couple of years, is all about Scotland trying to get to 100% clean energy. Working with you guys, can you help with that?
Yeah, absolutely.
Right.
Yeah, you
Yeah.
can. Well, there's a company that I know quite well that are trying to generate power from space and beam it down.
Yeah.
That's a completely
So
different
hang on,
skill.
you're
Right.
generating power
Yeah.
in space
Yeah.
Massive solar panels.
Yeah.
and then bringing it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
using
Yeah.
microwaves.
Yeah.
Yeah, I know.
Craig, fascinating story. Thank you so much for coming on. It's brilliant.
No, it's been a pleasure. Thanks
Yeah.
for inviting me.
Craig, that's just one of these, you meet somebody and I'm blown away.
Yeah.
And I've never wanted to go to space and I still don't
Don't.
because I'm claustrophobic.
I wouldn't go either.
But just one person, because it's something that I'm always interested in. Can one person make a difference?
Yeah.
And the answer you've come up with is yes.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
So well done.
Thank you very much.
Nice to meet you.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for
Thanks,
coming on the
guys.
show. Brilliant.
So, another Go Radio Business Show comes to an end, Willie. Mr. Goldfinger, as he's now known in the business. We had some brilliant guests today. And if you're sitting there in your business and you're thinking, oh my God, what's Donald Trump doing next? Worry about the things you can control. And one thing for sure, you can't control Donald Trump.
Tom, another brilliant show, great guests, some stories. To all our viewers and listeners, remember that if you are watching this, please hit the subscribe button. It doesn't cost you anything, right? And we will keep bringing you fantastic guests and brilliant topics. All the best.
The Go Radio Business Show with Hunter and Haughey. Hit subscribe wherever you get your podcasts and never miss an episode.